What else did you want to talk about? You got some other stuff in here?
Yeah, something happened at the beginning of this week. A really big Microsoft studio, Lionhead. It is Lionhead, right?
Lionhead Studios, yes. This was the one that was started up by Peter Molyneux.
It's going to change the world forever. This video game.
I appreciate his being who I am. I appreciate the passion and the love for like trying to. He looks at not board games again. Freudian slip here. Video games as art.
Right.
And as something that's not just for kids, or hopefully we've gotten over that. I think we have, right? That idea that it's, I mean, what is it? The average gamer is like 30 years old.
Yeah, my age.
So, but he also feels like,
it's more of an experience.
It's an experience. He's always trying to he's trying to push things forward. Yep. But sometimes his games don't meet his ambition.
Yeah, so, I mean, everyone knows what Fable is. Pretty big game. The original game was on Xbox.
It's a fantastic game.
Fable 2 is where I got started with it on the 360. And that game is amazing. Big RPG, very open world, kind of do what you want, make your character good or bad, kick the chickens, you can moon people, stuff like that. And then Fable 3 came out, not that good at all.
Well, the problem I had with Fable 3, again, it's not objectively, it's not a bad game, but what it was trying to do when you become like king is like you start having to sit on the throne. Like, it's the same thing I always have where it's like when you rule the world, it gets kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
Trying to rule the world is...
You have like a family, you can like give your wife and all that.
Yeah, like people come in, you have to like make decisions on, it's the government simulator. Who wants to do that? Like, it's a boring idea, but I understand what they were trying to do.
But they did other games too. Did you ever play Black and White?
That was, I don't know if that was PC. Lionhead.
Yeah, it was Lionhead.
Oh, it was? I just thought it was
God
Peter.
Simulator.
No, I played Black and White. Great game.
Yeah,
fantastic
great game.
PC game. That's what I want him to do more. I want them to do that. And I think this happens with a lot of... When you have a successful franchise, right? Like if you create... Like think of Assassin's Creed or think of Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid's a really good example where Hideo Kojima, they're like, you're going to make a bunch of Metal Gear Solid games, like forever. Yeah. Like... And I'm sure when they go into it, they make one, they're excited about it, and they have ideas for sequels. But when you get up to like 3, 4, 5, like you're like, okay, I'm
over this.
Yeah, I want to do something else. And I think from a standpoint of Lionhead Studios, I'm sure they wanted to maybe do something else, and they were trying to Fable Legends.
So the game that was in development right now, but Peter Molyneux's not involved with this at all. He left the studio at this point when this game started production. It was Fable Legends, I want to say, but it was a free to play. 4 heroes versus one kind of DM who can like set traps and all that kind of stuff.
Right, one person's the bad guy versus like your friends.
Yep,
which sounds super cool. Like,
yeah, love
Dungeons and Dragons style. We play a lot. We play Imperial Assault, which is a board game where one person's the Imperial player, the rest are the rebels, and you kind of the rule set and what's potentially could unfold, and you can gear your opponents, your friends, into traps. But they also know that that, so they know when they're being geared into something, pushed into something, maybe they should react in a special way. So that mechanic in a video game, it's already tried and true in board games, and in tabletop games. So it should be great. But
it was in beta, so it was very far along in development. They've showed it at a couple gaming conventions like E3 and all that stuff. It was being developed for Windows 10 and Xbox One, but that game's canceled and they closed the studio on Monday. I think they came out with this.
That sucks. Here's the thing too. We hear about this like it feels like every month or every 2 months, a huge studio gets closed. When Midway closed, that was huge. I remember playing Midway games forever when I was a kid. You had, I'm trying to think
THQ, remember that?
THQ went away. All of these game companies, it feels like either you're Activision, or you're an independent game company.
Oh yeah.
There's not that middle ground no Midway. There's no midway point anymore, no pun intended. But, so Lionhead's probably fits it. They're obviously not an indie studio. They make, they make AAA games.
Yeah, I don't know if they were working on anything else other than this one game at the point, but it is odd. It's not odd to really see these big studios close. It happens, like you said, more often than we think. But it is crazy to see a game that's been talked about for years, that's been in beta for a little while, and just get canceled. But I guess it was just customer feedback wasn't great on the beta version of the game. People just weren't having fun, and it's better just to kind of close it. But it kind of sucks because from someone who really liked Fable. It kind of sucks that we won't get a next-gen Fable.
Someone will buy that franchise. I'm sure they sold it off. And
the IP. Yeah, I think Microsoft held on to the IP.
They own it. Yeah, so they'll do something with it. It's a traditional fantasy tropes in like a chibi like art world. Like you were talking about, you can moon people. It's very cartoony.
But it was fun.
Yeah, so that's sad. I think the other thing whenever we talk about Peter Molyneux, I always think of the Project Natal. Remember the Kinect?
The kid?
Yeah, it was supposed to be like, that's the problem is we talked about this too with trailers to like games, and you have to make sure that you have to be again, I'm not a PR guy, but I always felt like if you set expectations way too high and you cannot meet those, you're only setting yourself up for failure.
Yep.
That's why on this podcast we make sure to set no expectations.
I think in that game was that moment where like, because he kind of talked like that about Fable and stuff, and like Fable 3, oh, it's going to change the world. But yeah, that Milo Connect game or something, that was like the defining the plateau of Peter. That was as high as Peter Molyneux can get. It was just not great. And that game never came out.
You know what we need? We need a podcast with Peter Molyneux and Johnny Ives.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine? This podcast will revolutionize the world of podcasting. No,
stupid.
But again, and I think Apple, I don't know why. I mean, I guess it's when you sit there and you talk, it's the boy who cried wolf, right? If you keep talking about this iPhone revolutionized, it's the best iPhone.
The leather stitching on this band.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay. Like
who cares?
Yeah. You've done it too many times. And I think Peter Molyneux from Project Natal had me going like, after I saw Connect, and now Connect is gone, right? They've scrapped it entirely.
I don't think there's any games in development for it. Yeah.
That's sad. And I think I'm glad Microsoft has kind of fixed the ship with their whole Xbox debacle, but I think a lot of that, unfortunately, was the fault of Peter Molyneux. Molyneux? I don't know how to say it. Talking about Project Natal, you can, it's just, you show your skateboard to it and it prints your skateboard, real life.
That was even way back to 360 days.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That was Project Natal, the first Connect. Yeah. So I love his passion, but sometimes he's got to rein it in because sometimes it ends up being negative. But in this case, it sucks. I think the other thing with video game studios, it feels like mercenaries, right? Like everybody gets fired from this studio, this next big studio, or not big, but a studio.
Some members of this studio created this new studio.
Right.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I can't imagine like teams of hundreds of people. I don't know how they do it with movies. You have hundreds of different people working on something and it all comes together at the very end. It blows me away.
Yep.
Speaking of movies.
That blew us away.
Yes. Good job. Segue. We went and saw, just today, 10 Cloverfield Lane.